Welcome to the show. I'm Dan Turbyville. This is Powerhouse Fence Show. Thanks for stopping by. This week, I'm just going to kind of simulate going through the entire process of bidding a job. So the title is Come Bid a Job with Me. I'm going to walk through the whole thing from qualification, right? From qualifying the job, making sure I want to bid it, all the way through to the end when I have a price, and I'm going to submit that. So that's what's in store for you today. I will say there was someone commenting that they were waiting, and I tried to reply, and all I could do was put the user in timeout, which I find to be hilarious that I can put someone in timeout for commenting. But anyway, so we do have a few sponsors on the show: Memphis Fence Company, Simpolo, Valgard Strategies Group, and we have some partners down here across the bottom of the screen. They are the Thornton Fence Consulting Group, Fence News, EZG Manufacturing, and My Salesman. Speaking of qualifying jobs that you want to bid, there's My Salesman. Also, we have a link in the description for the Emerging Fence Professional Facebook group. I mean, it's an extremely easy place to go join and network with people, and it costs nothing, right? There's a monthly Zoom call. You can just join. But if you join that Facebook group, that's where the links are posted every month for the Zoom call. And there is one tomorrow. So come by, check it out. Networking, relationships, all of those things are incredibly important. And that's a great place to start and try to build some of that. So anyway, I already told you what we're going to talk about this week. So we're going to cruise on down a little bit. I have to celebrate for a minute. My sinuses are really wonky. That's not what I'm celebrating. My sinuses are really wonky, and I might struggle a little bit to talk. Okay, so just bear with me. But anyway, the thing I want to celebrate is actually I finished reading 2 whole books. And I know that's crazy for some of you, but for me, it's a big deal. I've listened to audiobooks and I've read at some books. But to actually complete cover to cover 2 books is a pretty big deal for me. So I'm proud of that. And, maybe you are, maybe you're not, but here we go. From Drift to Drive and by Chris Robinson and 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. The Chris Robinson book we're doing as a part of a book club here at work. John Maxwell is a part of Purple Coaching's 2026 annual mastermind. So that's where the 2 books came from. But we're shifting and we're going to more books. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, thank you all for being here. That's why I do this every single week, because people, keep listening and I keep talking. So if you have something you want to hear about, let me know. There's a phone number on the bottom of the screen, 901-878-4987. You can call that phone number and I will either answer, or you can leave a message and I'll call you back. Or find us on social media, whatever, right? If you got questions or suggestions or anything else, reach out. But I do appreciate you all being here and listening to the show. If you do see this on Facebook, it's also on all your major podcast platforms. You can listen to the audio version of it. So that's an option too. Now, with no further ado, let's get into the topic of the show. Number 1, qualify the job. So before we actually do work on a job and dive in and really get after it, right, we're going to make sure that it's something we want to bid. So we're not going to bid them all. Okay. And I figure if we're not going to bid them all, it probably makes sense for us to choose the ones we will and will not bid. Instead of just trying to bid them all, running out of time, not finishing, living that super hectic chaos, which I will tell you, I've done this a pretty good long time, right? So I started bidding commercial jobs around 2008. So 18 years ago. And I was 18 years younger back then, for those of you who are doing good at math. And I mean, there was a lot of times whenever I was here and I just was trying to figure out how to take a nap so nobody would notice me sleeping. Right? Like that was my objective for the day because I stayed out all night, didn't sleep enough, I did whatever, and I mean, I was, just kinda living that life, right? And so, I was not focused and great at the job, but somehow I did something right every now and then. But what it led to is a lot of chaos and a lot of jobs that didn't get finished, and I would start a job and I would work on it, and then I would finish it, like, a day or 2 after bid date, and I'd be like, well, it's done. I'm gonna just go ahead and send it, right? Or I just wouldn't even finish them. And I would wind up with, 20, 30, 40, 50% of the jobs that I started on just incomplete and throwing them away. And it was not the best way to handle those things by any stretch of the imagination. But we try not to do that now. Okay. So again, we know we're not going to bid them all. May as well pick the ones that we actually do want to bid. Now, how do we decide that? Well, we bid something that makes sense for us. All right, so maybe we look at the size of the job or the location of the job or the type of fence that's on the job or the type of property it's on or the owner or the contractors that are bidding it or whatever those variables are. You're going to have to decide that for yourself. You're going to have to figure out what you're good at bidding. And it might take you bidding a bunch of random stuff and losing to get to the point where you understand what you're good at, but just keep going. I'm going to tell you this a few times. You're going to get beat a lot. All right. Be okay with not selling all of these jobs that you're going to go out and bid. It's just a part of it. You're going to get beat. And when you get beat, okay, move on, do it again. So, anyway, we're going to look at a lot of variables, right? And I mean, probably one of the biggest factors, I didn't say one of the biggest factors really is the size of the job and the location of the job. I mean, if it's a job that's 2 or 3 or 8 or 12 hours away and it's got 60 feet of fence on it, right? Probably going to find something a little bit more appealing. Then, we kind of look at some other things, right? I mentioned the 12-hour away piece with the 60 feet of fence. When I'm looking at it and I'm thinking about how far away it is, I want all of that to make sense, right? If it's 60 feet of fence and it's going to take us 2 mobilizations and we've got to send a project manager up there a couple times and all of these other things, like we have more money in mobilization and project managers than we would in fence. And it just doesn't make sense, right? So that's what I'm saying. I want to try to find a balance to where we're not spending all the money because it's out of town. Hopefully that makes some sort of sense. But all that stuff adds up quick, right? Also, another thing when we start getting out of town is the digging conditions. I I fortunately, I have personally not experienced it. I have heard stories about it at Memphis Fence Company before I was here. I've heard stories of other people telling me that it happened at other fence companies and other situations, but you can get on a job that's some hours away and you can go to start digging holes and be like, "Holy crap." Right? Because maybe you get a little spoiled by where you're digging holes, or maybe it's just that much harder there. But that can bite you in the butt big time. I know a guy that it did bite him in the butt big time, and I think he wound up having to hire someone to come in and dig all the holes because it was like through solid granite, and he just was not equipped for it. So another big thing to look at when we're looking at jobs, especially if they're in an unfamiliar area. Okay, now I mentioned the size of the job and the location of the job. Those are big things to look at, right? But another big thing to look at is how did we find this job? And let me explain what I mean. Did we go out and just scour the internet and find this project that's 4 hours away that maybe doesn't really make sense for us to bid, but we kind of want to because, it the name of the job has the same initials as our kid or whatever. So, if that's the case, or we had someone call and I answer the phone and they say, "Hey, Dan, we've got this job. I know it's a little bit far away from you, but could you take a look at it and could you get us a number?" Right? So 2 opposite ends of the spectrum there. And if it's I found it on the internet because I was just looking for something to do, probably not going to bid the job if it's even questionable. If it's the phone call of, hey, Dan, I know this is far away, but can you do me a solid? Probably going to bid the job. Okay. So that is a really big deciding factor for me is the way that the lead comes to us. And it's, could be an email, right? But the emails that you get that are just like canned emails that go out to 64 different people versus an email that feels like it came directly to you. That's the ones I'm looking for. Okay. The ones direct. So anyone that comes directly to us and asks for a price is generally considered a priority in over the ones that we go out and hunt down and find because we're just looking for something to bid, right? We bid both, but those ones that come to you, those are better. And how you get those jobs and where they come from and how you build those networks and relationships and everything else, that's a whole nother topic. We're not going down that rabbit hole right now, but it is, you can do it. So we want to bid something where we have the chance to win. So if you remember me talking about the jobs out of town where we wind up with our mobilization, our project managers, and all of these other kind of out of town costs wind up the same price as the fence, doesn't make any sense, right? So we want to focus where we actually have a chance to bid because, I mean, honestly, we don't need any practice at this. We know how to bid fence jobs and we're pretty good at it. So I don't think we need to practice. We have to make sure that we have a chance at winning the job. And we have to make sure that we can actually provide the level of service and customer experience that we expect. Okay. Again, the 60-foot job that's 12 hours away, we might not be the best fit, because what's going to happen is the 60-foot offense, and let's say it's on a $40 million project, $10 million project, $5 million project. It's like the last thing on every single person's mind on that job. And they're going to get down towards the end of the job and they're going to go, oh crap, we need that piece of fence put in. And they're going to call and say, hey, can you have that piece of fence put in on Wednesday? And we're like, no, sorry, dude. It's going to take us a week or 2 or 3 to get there. So you're just going to have to wait. Right. So that's what I'm saying. We might not be able to deliver the best customer experience. So that's another factor that we want to look at. And I'm going to take a drink. So hold on. Okay. Told y'all I was a little sinusy and it's making it's a little difficult, but here we are. We're doing it. All right. So we want to make sure we have a chance to win. We want to make sure that we can deliver the customer experience that we want our customers to receive. Right. So a lot of factors go into deciding if we even want to pursue a job or not. So during that process, we've taken like a preliminary look at the plans. And we've taken maybe a preliminary look at the specs, but we certainly have some idea of what the project is, what all fences on it, where it's at, who the bidders are. We've kind of got a lay of the land a little bit, and we need at least that basic information. Also, I'll tell you right now that someone's calling me. I bet you $5 it's spam. Oh my goodness. So tired of junk calls. I'm going to go sign up for something that removes me from the internet. Delete me, I know, is one of them. There's a couple of them. I'm going to go sign up for one of those because I hope that it makes it to where I get 3 less spam phone calls per day. It's driving me insane. All right. Sorry. So right now we're actually working on redefining our rules, right? For how we determine if we want to bid a job or not. And I've been playing a lot with AI. And so I have an AI agent and it's hooked into our CRM and it's hooked into all this other stuff. And I said, hey, why don't you go analyze all the data for the projects that we've bid over the past couple years? So it was able to go through and read everything, all the bid results, every update we had put on every job, all of our notes, how much the job was sold or how much we bid the job for. if there was a, information we had gotten back that kind of indicated how much the job was sold for, how much they paid from someone else, how much we had lost it by, that spread, just whatever information it could find, I told it to go get it. And it did. And it gave me a lot of stuff. And it gave me things that I'm not going to say I never would have thought of, but if I ever did think of these things, it would have been a result of me spending a lot of time studying that data, right? It would not have been something I would have just kind of glanced through there and been like, oh, yeah, wow, we won some jobs and lost some jobs. And what would you look at this, right? That would not have happened. This stuff was like deep dive in there. If you don't know, some people like AI, some people hate AI. I will tell you, there's ways that you can use it that are fantastic for sifting through massive amounts of data, right? And extracting key points out of it. It's really good at that. So if you never use it for any of the other stuff, that might be at least a place that you could use it. I used it yesterday or today. I just went to ChatGPT, right? Basic thing that everybody has access to. And I took like 6 credit card statements and I put it in there. And I said, I want you to give me a full analysis of every transaction that happened on this credit card over the past 6 months. This is our business card. So, a bunch of users and stuff like that in there. And it did it. And it broke down everything. And it like categorized it all. And it put it in a bunch of different tabs in an Excel spreadsheet. And it told me who was spending money on what, and, showed me all the recurring charges and all that. Kind of been on a little bit of a mission to make sure I cancel all the recurring things that I have that I don't need. Because again, playing with AI, I've signed up with a lot of stuff that I figured out didn't work and may have missed canceling a few things. But anyway, I was super impressed with it, and it was really cool to go through and be able to get some really good data. And I mean, it's relatively easy to do, and it was super quick. So along those lines, Amanda at Contractor Accelerator and myself are putting together a Facebook group, and we're going to start having a monthly meeting, and we're going to call it Tech Tuesdays. So we're just going to talk about technology, right? We're not there to sell you anything. We both have softwares. We're not there to sell you software. I promise you, we're there to just be a place that people can come together and talk about what they're doing with technology, right? How is technology helping your business? Are you using AI? What are you using it for? Right? Because you can go, man, you hear all kinds of crazy stories, but then when you get to the point where it's like, okay, show me the thing that you did and put in your business that actually made a difference, that's a different conversation. And those are the conversations that we want to have. So we're hoping to bring together some people that have done some really cool stuff that they're proud of, and maybe bring some people who are really curious about, technology and haven't implemented anything, and let's all just talk about it. So more information will be coming about that, but just to give you a little preview, that is coming around the corner here. So we've qualified the job. We decided this job fits what we want to do. We're going to go after it. Good. Let's move along. Felt like that took an eternity. All right. So we're going to go look at plans and specs. And this is obviously assuming there are plans and specs, right? We already looked at them before because we had to do the preliminary high level look to decide if it was a job that we're going to bid. If you're not very good at looking at them, just keep doing it. Right. You will get to the point. Somebody sent me a plan set earlier today, and I just kind of clicked it and scrolled through there, and probably in 60 seconds, I had somewhat of an idea of what the job was. Right. And no, I did not go find the fence and measure it and all of that stuff. Right. But I could tell that this 3,400 square foot building that was 3.5 hours away with a little bit of fence on the parking lot outside, I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Right. So you get a feel for the whole project is what I did right there. Right. I did not go through, scale it all off, measure out how many feet of fence it was and be like, well, sorry, that's only 324 feet of fence. We're not going to be able to do that. I did not do that. I didn't spend half an hour messing with it. So that's what you can get to, but it just takes time, right? You just repetition over and over. All right. So we have the plans and specs. Again, we already looked at them a little bit. So now let's get serious about looking at them. So this for us in our process, this is when we would actually upload the plans and the specs into Simpalo probably. So before we've looked at them just in like their plain PDF form, we've looked at them through whatever plan site we found them on, like however that was. Again, the quick glance, look through, figure out what it is type of approach doesn't need to be anywhere that we can do takeoffs and measurements and all that. So now we're going to get in there and we're going to get a little bit more serious. No, I take that back. We're going to get a lot a bit more serious, right? We're going to start going through and digging into everything. And hopefully we're doing this early enough so we're not waiting until the last minute and we're not in a rush and we're not sloppy. Right? So that's one big benefit is we're not in a rush and we're not sloppy. The other big benefit of doing it early is that we can ask questions. If we're ahead of the RFI deadline, or if we're more than 2 days before the bid is due, the odds of us getting 2 days is dramatic. Let me be clear. If you're a week or a week and a half or 2 weeks before the bid is due, your odds of getting an answer for a question are higher than they are if you're 1 day before. Okay? That's why you wanna be out ahead of it. So, you wanna get deep enough in the plan set that you have questions when you're a week, week and a half, 2 weeks away from bid time, okay? Now, what are we asking questions about? Well, you're going to have a lot of questions. I'm just going to tell you. Again, if you're not good at reading plans, if you haven't had a lot of experience there, you're going to get in there. And once you figure out what's going on, you're going to figure out that half the information you need is missing, right? It's just the way it is. It sucks. We all deal with it. We all complain about it, but there's nothing we're going to do. All right. So we do the best we can. But do not go to a big site plan and say, oh, there's fence around the perimeter. I'm done. Right. It's a 1,000,000 square foot warehouse. You can't just go to the site plan, find the fence, and be done. There's more to it than that. We have to find details, obviously. We got to read the specs, right? And we're going to go in the spec book. We're going to find the fence. If we're doing gate automation, we're going to look for gate automation. If we're doing, anything that you're doing, right? You want to pick up some other random things, like just go make sure you find the details in the specs. And as you're reading through the specs, if you don't understand what the words mean, then look them up. It's going to take you time to get used to it. Allocate the time so you can do it well, right? And that means look up what they mean. Just do it right. If you can't find what it means, call and ask someone. All right. There's a 14.5% chance I can answer the question if you want to call this phone number right down here on the bottom of the screen. But call somebody, ask AI, search on Google, like whatever that is, right? If you don't understand what you're reading in the specs, look it up and get an understanding. So detail specs, stuff like that are more obvious. But remember, the 1,000,000 square foot warehouse with the fence around the perimeter, how many cages are inside that building? We're doing a project that is a warehouse distribution facility, something like that right now. And I want to say there was something like 12 different various cages inside the building. We didn't get all of them. Some of them were converted to wire mesh cages and they hired somebody else to do it. But I think in total, there was something like 10 or 12 cages inside, right? Had we just gone to the site plan, seen the perimeter fence, got all excited that we were bidding some fence and gates and automation and all of this other stuff and just bid that, we never would have seen the rest. So look for all of it. All right. We already mentioned the gate automation. And then I like to look for like all the little things that it's going to take to actually do the job. The little things. Okay. If the fence is going across concrete, right? Is it going to be core drilled or are you going to plate it? And go ahead, just bid it that way. Right. And if you don't want to include it in your base bid, you can put it on as a line item and be like, obviously not the way I'm about to say this, but you can say, hey, I know there's some core drilling required because I see where the fence is going. Here's how much it's going to cost to do that. Right. So you can put as just like add on things that it's going to actually require to do the fence. I struggle with that. I think because I think I include too many of those things that I know it's going to take. And I'll be like, oh man, I did a job like this one time. And let me tell you, there's going to be this problem that we face, this challenge that we face while we're doing the job. And this is what we need to do to overcome it. So let's put that money in there. Right. So some of that comes from experience, and you get burned on a job and you tend to remember it. I'll tell you that. So there are properties where we go and we bid jobs that have fence removal, and that fence removal is ignorantly expensive because we have been burned removing fence on that property before, and it will be ignorantly expensive forever. Hold on. But things like that, you just remember, right? And you learn from it. So again, the core drilling, that's just a random example, but I try to think through the actual installation process. So instead of just looking at a straight line on a flat piece of paper, I try to think through the whole process. Okay. I'm thinking about the digging conditions. Again, we talked about that before, right? Gave you a couple examples of people who got on job sites and really got bit in the butt because the digging conditions were terrible. I'm thinking about how hard is it going to be to get to material to where it goes? All right. And this is what I mean. Sometimes you have to park a mile away from the fence or 2 miles or whatever, right? Sometimes the fence is over the river and through the woods going back there towards grandma's house, and you got to get material back there. We did a job a few months ago that was that. It was you parked in the parking lot and you had to load all the material on your side by side or skid steer or whatever and carry it way out through the woods, up and down hills and all this stuff. And you got to know that when you bid the job. Again, you can't just look at a flat piece of paper and see a little black line on there and measure it and say, all right, that's 600 feet of fence. We're good to go. That's 600 feet of fence, but it's through the middle of a ditch and it's 4.5 miles from the parking lot, right? Those are way two different scenarios. Understand the job. We did one, it's been a few years ago, but we had to build sleds. All right. The scenario was it was, I don't know, 3 miles behind this wall. And we had off the side of the road, we had to go behind this wall and we had to travel down the side of this fairly steep slope. And if we put anything on the skid steer to carry it, like on the forks, the skid steer was sliding down the hill because it was a steep enough slope. And, we had to have everything tied to the forks and all that stuff. And it would kind of stay on there, but the machine was still sliding all over the place. So we wound up building these sleds and we pulled them around with a mini excavator. And, that way we could kind of catch ourselves when we started sliding down the hill. And, we would put a couple bundles of pipe on the sled and we would track it all the way down there. And then we would unload it and come back and get some more. And it took forever to get all the material laid out for that job. But again, we understood the conditions we were getting into. So sometimes the fence is on a levee. We didn't get the job, but I remember bidding one a couple months ago. And this is what it was, some sort of water treatment place or something like that, maybe. But there was big levees and the fence was up on top of the levees. And I was like, yeah, we're going to have to get material from down here where we're allowed to park all the way around to the top of this levee. Same thing. A lot of travel time when you start doing that stuff. So I just think through the process, right? And I try to think through what it's going to be like to work on that job site for that contractor. Some of these contractors, they got you over there doing yoga for an hour every morning. You're still paying everybody to stand there and do yoga, right? So just be prepared for that. You learn all that because you read through the specs and you read through all of those 42 documents that come along with that invitation to bid. The only reason you're going to do yoga for an hour every morning, you got safety training once a week and all of this other stuff is because you read those documents. You go to a job that takes you a year and your whole crew spends an hour every single day, figure out how much that costs you. Reading's pretty cheap then. Spend the time, do it right. I'm kind of in a position where I look over, I'm kind of in a position where I look over stuff that people work on a decent bit. And maybe it's people on our team. Maybe it's people from outside our team, right? Whoever it is, I look over people's work and people leave off a lot of details. And it's important to get all of that stuff right and understand what you're getting into and understand all the little nuances and all the little complications and things like that are in the plan set. So really just, I mean, man, if you got to close your eyes and visualize yourself on that job site, and while you're looking at those details and you kind of look around, right? And it's like, what am I putting the fence in? Where's my truck parked? How hard is it going to be to get water over here if we've got to, mix concrete or whatever the thing is, right? Just kind of think through that whole process. And that's going to help you. All right. So that was number 2. Let's move on to number 3. Now we're going to talk about the cost of goods sold. Okay. Because we've learned where the fence and the gates are, and we've found it all, right? Because we spend enough time looking through the plans, reading the specs, everything, that we understand what we're doing. We know the conditions, we understand all the little details, and we've seen all those little sneaky nuances that are in there. So now let's do this. Here's a good example. Let's pretend that we're going to go do this job out in the middle of the wilderness. All right. You can be in the Sahara, right? You can be in Alaska. You can be wherever you want to be. Completely remote wilderness, miles and miles and miles from civilization. Now, imagine you had to pack all the material at the shop. You had to put it in a plane. You had to put it on a boat. You had to put it on mules. You had to do whatever, right? To get from where you were to that job site. And you spent a week traveling from your shop to that job site. And you didn't pass anything on the way. Right? There's no supply houses. There's no distributors. There's nothing between you and between you and your shop. So if you're in that scenario, you got to know exactly every single piece that you need to do that job. You have to have spent the time to look through it and understand it and double and triple check everything to make sure you have it all right. And if we leave something off, it's going to take it a week to get there. And you're probably not going to realize you need it until you need it. So you're going to be sitting there with a crew for a week waiting on this thing to go through, flights or boat rides, or you had to go buy a horse or steak dinner or whatever it was to get it out there. So think like that. That's the level of detail I want you to have when you're going through a plan set and when you're getting ready to bid a job. Okay. Because what I don't want is I don't want you to get to the end and be like, oh crap, I left the wire off the chain link fence and it was an 8,000 foot job. Promise you that has happened to somebody at some point in the fence industry. Okay. You wouldn't be the first one, but it could be the last fence job that you ever bid, if that's the case. Hold on. So think with that level of detail, right? Don't get burned. Okay. Yeah, that was dramatic, right? But you get the idea. Look through everything, think through the process, get all the stuff. Now, I mentioned this earlier, except there's always missing information. Okay. And I bet you, even if we made the plans and wrote the specs for the job, we would still make mistakes on it. Yeah. We would leave information out because we're all human. We're not perfect. And we are the fence experts. Now, take that same concept, apply it to somebody that's never even touched a fence in their whole life. Yeah, they're definitely going to leave some stuff off and they don't understand what they're doing. And that's okay. We deal with it. Everybody's on the same playing field. So if we looked at it early enough, then hopefully this is how we handle these things, right? This would be my advice to you, how to handle when you don't have information. 1, you looked at it early enough, you're able to submit an RFI. The design team is going to come back with the information that you need. That's the ideal scenario. Okay. They might take your RFI and ignore it. Yeah. There's all kinds of mights, right? If you got time, if you're there early enough, submit it and hope for the best. Okay. If we didn't get an answer, and that's the only possible scenario, because I know we looked at it early enough and we submitted it before any deadlines and we gave them plenty of time to answer our questions. Okay. So when they ignored us and didn't give us an answer, now we can try to call some GCs and say, hey, friend, what do you think I should do right now? Because I don't know what I don't know what I need to do. Okay, we can take that approach. We can hope one of them will give us some guidance. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Sometimes they're just like, hey, you're the fence people, figure it out. What happens a lot of times, I did this earlier this week. I helped somebody earlier this week do this exact thing. What happens a lot of times is that we fill in the gaps. We might have that when I helped this person with one of the things, they had a picture. That's it. They sent a picture and they said, hey, we want this thing. Right? They didn't tell us what it was made of. They didn't tell us anything. And the particular thing could have been made out of various materials, but they didn't tell us anything. And so what did we do? Well, we figured out a way that we could build the thing and it's going to serve the purpose that we believe they wanted. And that was our approach. So did you hear what I said? It was going to serve the purpose that we think they wanted, right? So we try to understand the intent, their intention. What are they trying to accomplish? And we want to give them something that's going to help them accomplish that well. So that applies to fence and gates and automation. And if you're doing access control, like I think it applies to all of those scenarios, right? And this doesn't just happen when you're bidding a job to a general contractor. Let's play a little bit of a different scenario here. We go out and we meet with a commercial customer because not every commercial job comes from a plan set. There are plenty of properties that are commercial properties that hire fence companies to put in fence. Okay. Still commercial fence. So we go out and we meet with this customer and they say, hey, I want to put a fence around my parking lot. I want a gate that's automated, or I want a gate with a motor. It's probably what they told you. And you say, okay, well, how do you want that gate with a motor to open, right? What do you want to do to tell it to open and close? And you work through that whole thing. Okay, how tall do you want your fence? Normally, my go-to approach was to hold my hand up and say, do you want it, 6 foot tall is about right here? Do you want it taller, shorter? And kind of use that as a starting point, right? So we go through all of that stuff. Guess what? The crazy thing is, we just got very, very basic information. We did not go through and ask them, well, what size post do you want and how thick do you want it to be and how much do you want it to weigh per foot and how thick do you want your chain link fabric? You're not asking them all that, are you? No, you're asking them the basic information. Now, obviously, if you're looking at plans and specs and all of the size of the post, the wall thickness, everything else is there, use it. You live by what it says. But if you get to the down close to bidding time and you haven't gotten any of that information and you're missing you still have holes, right? You got gaps. Well, you're going to have to fill them with something. And so apply that same fence professional knowledge that you have from years or knowing how to do it the right way, whatever that is, apply that to those gaps that you have. That's what we do. Man, that's good stuff. I'm just going to tell you. So we've now applied the information we know. Okay. And do not cheat. Do not be one of these freaking cheaters and go out there and put some 055 pipe on an 8-foot tall commercial fence just so you can try to sell a job. All right. Don't do that crap. Be freaking better. So at least put up something that is commercial, right? Some commercial pipe, some commercial chain link fabric. Like if you're going to bid a commercial job, bid a commercial job. Don't bid a, residential job, then call it commercial and try to just don't. You get what I'm saying? Don't cheat. Don't cheat. But yeah, a lot of times we don't get the info. We do the best we can. Okay. Sometimes there are scenarios, and I wish I had a good scenario to share with you, but it would be something weird. It's not going to be a 6-foot chain link fence, right? It's going to be some weird thing where I don't exactly know, but I suspect their intention is some sort of a premium product or high end luxury, whatever word you want to put there. And in that scenario, I go the expensive route. Okay. because I think, man, I bet this is what they actually wanted. And I'm going to make sure that I bid it the expensive way because I want to make sure I'm covered if we get the job and go down the submittal process and all of that. Just the way I do it. All of this is just the way I do it. So take it for what it's worth. And every once in a while, you might look at something that's missing a ton of information. There's, what I was just talking about is a legitimate. We think they want the expensive thing. There's other times where it's missing a ton of information, and we just throw some money at it. Right? There might be a big fat miscellaneous line item in a bid because we're like, I don't freaking know what we're gonna do. But I think for this much money, we're going to be covered. Probably terrible advice. Okay. Um, don't do that unless you're willing to face the consequences of being terribly wrong. All right. So that's a good way to get yourself in a pickle. So again, not advice, just honest is what it is. The better approach is probably to just not bid the job if it's that bad. If there's that much information, just don't bid it. And honestly, sometimes that's the right choice. If you go all the way back to the beginning, we don't have to bid them all, but I do have to drink some tea. All right, so we spent a lot of time. We got through our cost of goods sold. We understand. Look at the details, fill the gaps, do the right thing. Don't cheat to sell a job. Don't put up garbage. Do the right thing. Imagine that somebody who knows a lot about fences watching what you're doing, then do it the way that they would not just smack you in the head about. Okay. All right. So let's go look at a couple more things because we need to wrap up this cost of goods sold piece, right? So we're going to go through again all of the documents that we get when we're invited to bid on a job. We are responsible for those documents. So we're going to go back through. We're going to look at our insurance requirements, and we're going to look at the schedule of the job, and we're going to look to see if there's certified payroll. Are there wage rates on the job? We're going to look through, just kind of go through the general conditions of the specs, right? We want to make sure that we're covered. We want to make sure that we're not missing anything. Now, there was a job that we bid, and it was a big job. And the person that worked on it missed the fact that there were wage rates or certified payroll requirements or whatever it was, and where the job's located was in an expensive part of the country, which meant the wage rates were a lot higher than they typically would be here in Memphis, Tennessee. Any local jobs, if they're certified payroll, wage rates, any of that stuff, we're paying people more than they are anyway. But this particular job was not the case. And I think it was like something like $675,000 or $700,000 difference when we applied the wage rate that they had. Right? Imagine had we bid and won a job without seeing that. That's massive. So bad. That's what we're doing. Really, when we're bidding jobs, that's what we're doing, is we're deciding how much risk we want to take. The bigger the job, the farther away the job, the more exciting the job, whatever that is, typically the more risk there is. Now, I heard the riskiest thing you can do in life is assume there's anything without risk. So you're always taking some level of risk, right? You just have to decide how much risk you want to take. So back to the whole qualifying the job, decide how much risk you want to take. Add that one on there. All right, now we can move on. We've done our best. Tried to understand requirements, intentions, what it's going to take to install the job. Guess what? That's it. That's all there is to it, because we have a material cost, right? We've done that. We understood the designer's intention, the requirements, all of that, what it was going to take to do the job. All of those pieces went into us getting a material cost. Double, triple check that stuff after you get it from your suppliers, right? We personally take a material list and we send it to a supplier and we say, hey, can you bid this? They send it back to us. Then we go through it and we check it. Again, this week, I looked at 2 different quotes from 2 different suppliers. One of them had 12 line items on it. One of them had 18 line items on it. And there was about a 50% difference. We sent the same request to both of them. So now we have to go through here and like figure out what's going on, right? What did somebody mess up? Somebody put some extra stuff, somebody didn't put enough, whatever it is. We got to try to sort that out. So again, double, triple check all of that stuff. We have a labor cost because we spent enough time to understand what it took to install the job, how far away we had to park, how much travel time we had, right? Because, I mean, one, to get to the job site, but two, on the job site. We kind of understood the installation conditions. We have all of that stuff. We have our per diem included, our hotel expenses, our extra fuel, because I don't know if you bought any fuel lately, but it kind of sucks right now. We've got everything because we spent enough time. Okay. Spend enough time. All right. So now all we do, we have our cost of goods sold, slap a margin on that baby and let her go. Done and done. That's the sales price. You got to know what your margin needs to be. I'm going to try. It's so hard for me not to climb right on top of that soapbox every time I mention it. Especially, I'm looking at the time right now, 46 minutes and 30 seconds. I got plenty time for a rant, but I'm not. I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm going to try my best. But all right, know what your margin needs to be. In order to know your margin, you need to know your overhead. All right, go find some other episodes where I got on that rant. Don't make me do it now. But you got to know it. All right. And guess what? You need to be profitable. Whoever you are, anyone listening to this thing, understand if you own the business, if you're in a place of management, leadership, whatever that is, and you understand you need to be profitable, good. Now we have to make everyone else understand that. Okay. If you're not in any of those positions and you need to understand that the business has to be profitable to survive, because something's going to happen. A truck's going to break. Someone's going to make a mistake. Some unknown junk is going to come up. Whatever that is, you know what covers all of that is your profits. So you got to have some profits from some other jobs to cover that, to keep going. Plain and simple. Business will not survive if it's not profitable. You go out and break even every time, you're going to run out of money. All right. Now, when you get to this point, cost of goods sold, we understand our margin. We really understand our margin. And we put our margin on there and we have the sales price. Don't overthink it. You want to take one glance and go back through everything and make sure I got this material, I got that material, I got this. I didn't put too much money here. I didn't mess up and fat finger this and put an extra zero or whatever. Like, take that kind of look, fine. Okay. Don't go back in there and think, man, I think it's just too much. I think I need to lower my margin. Nah, get out of here with that crap. Don't go through there and be like, man, I really want this job. It's a big job. It's exciting. Like, I need to give them a discount. I think I'm going to take 10% off of this thing. Why? Right? Why? You know your margin. You know what it has to be. You know what that bottom line bare minimum number is for you to cover your overhead and to make a little bit of money. Don't go below it. Just don't do it. Oh, well, I could just take a few extra days of that labor off, man. I think it's just a little bit too much labor. Like, don't convince yourself that it's too much. If it's really too much, that's one thing. But don't convince yourself it is just because you want to lower the price of the job. I don't want to give it away. You shouldn't want to give it away. Bid it how you need to do it and move on. And guess what? Like I said at the beginning of the episode, you're going to get beat on a lot of jobs. It's just a part of it. You're not going to win them all. You can't win them all. You don't want to win them all, right? You're going to get beat. I guarantee you somebody's listening right now going, man, I want to win them all. No, you don't. If you win them all, that means you're doing them way too cheap. That's just it. So now, number 4 and final, you know what we do next? Move on. Go do another one, right? You got a job done and submitted and you feel good. You click send on that email. Your heart got beaten a little bit, right? You got all excited. Good. Go do it again. All right. And then when you win a job, good, go do it again. And when you lose a job, good, go do it again. Right? Celebrate your wins, but don't spend too much time celebrating them. You got to keep moving. All right? Feel the losses, but not too much time, and don't beat yourself up. Right? Be aware of it. Yeah, I got beat. We get beat a lot. I'm just going to tell you, we bid a lot of jobs and we get beat a lot, but we keep going and we keep bidding more and we keep bidding more, and then we sell some. And that's the name of the game, right? Just keep on going. Keep learning. Every time you fail, you got to learn. And I heard something the other day. I wish I would have put it in the notes. Man. It was something like learning is this being in the same situation again, but taking a different action. I know I'm butchering that, but same conditions, different action, right? If you're in the same conditions and the same action, you didn't learn anything. If you're in the same conditions and you take a different action, that's how you know you learned something. So keep learning, keep going, keep growing, and we'll see you back here next time.